Okay. See, I was the responsible of the archive of Commune of Forlì, and I changed my job at the 1st of October. So I'm sorry I'm not retired, but I changed my job, and now I work for the Emilia-Romagna region, the Agency of Labor in the General Affairs department, but I follow always archives. And it's my job. So I hope to help you to understand something about this theme, and not to be very boring, because maybe it could be so much technical or not. I don't know if I can explain you something interesting and not really boring. I hope so. If you have to do some question, please stop me, and we can talk about. Okay, maybe it's better. We can talk about all the things you want. I also have some questions to give you to understand how is your situation in your organization. So to understand what is your level of archival confusion or organization. So we start. I don't know when we could finish the lesson, if today, this morning or in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, okay. So we begin, and let's go. No problem. It was my intention is not to be very come si dice, scolastico, very pragmatic, but a free lesson, so okay. The chapters are this. We begin with explaining what I want to do with this slide, and explaining the first step for people that is the first time that approach the archival science, and the basic of archives. What can be done to improve our archives? Some question about the access of our documents and how to manage our archive, and the topic, the principal topic of the moment is the digitization of documents and records. And we end the lesson with our challenges at the moment, because archive is not only a problem of paper records, but especially is a problem of digital records. So we follow all this program in the day. What is the purpose of this course? Is to support people who own or look after archival material. So archive material is everything you have to do in your work. It could be document, but it could be also a photograph. You have to deal with this material in your everyday work, but if you are not a professional archivist, you can have some problem to organize these records or documents. So I can try to give you some indication. This course it will help you to plan and assess the care of your collection, even if it's a small collection or a large one. So we begin with simple tasks and practical steps. So we are trying to manage and protect our collection. Okay. Okay, first steps. What are archives? Archives are collection or documents or records. In archival science, we call documents records because have a different value. Document is document everything that document something. Records is very strong, is a very strong word, because record is something that has to be preserved for its importance. So we talk about records. Because records have been selected for permanent preservation. We have to keep them forever. And because we have to keep records forever, because they have a value as evidence, because they are a source of historical value or other research importance. We create records during our activities. So we don't buy records, but it's something that we build when we work. And they have two purposes. The first purpose is active. In our activity, we use them. Sorry, I began to speak better, so don't worry. In our activity, we use them for the current use, to work. We have to write letters, to buy factures, envelopes, to build regulamentations. So our activity is all guided by records. And when we have to stop to use these records, we have to keep them in our archives, because they have also an important value for history and for our administration record and memory. So we have to preserve them. So active purpose and archival purpose. Archive is a typical image of an archive. This is a big, obviously, archive. It could be the archive of Community Forlì. Maybe we watched with Claudia. The ATRIUM archive is a big, small, very, very small. But if the archive is large or small, it is not important. We have to apply all the same rules. So the dimension is not important. The rules are always the same. So don't worry about if you have a small quantity of documents or a big quantity. The principles are always the same. Why archives are important? Because they have value to nation, regions, organization, communities, and also for individual people. For me, as individual, as a normal people, it's very important to keep my images of my life. It is my archive, my personal archive. I want to keep them and preserve them forever, because are a memory of my story, and also for an organization, archive is important because it's the memory of the story and activity of this organization. With archive, I can provide evidence of my activity, especially of activities which occurred in the past. They tell stories, because I can find something of 100 years ago and something about the construction of a building, something about the decision of the mayor of the city about a very important problem. They can document people. I can find my personal story in the Community Forlì, in my personal file. They document identity of a city, of a person, and are valuable sources of information for research. If I want to know what happened in Forlì, I go to my former archive. I go to the municipal archive and search for records. So they are our record memory. So they are very important for our community, also for cultural, official and unofficial history. something sometimes in my job, and often in my job, I found that there is no a very good consideration about the importance of archives. Maybe it's boring. It's an activity that is not so important. It's not very attention, not very financed with important money, sums of money. But it would be very important to keep them in a good way, because they could help also the history, but also the normal work, the normal job of an organization. Just 2 years ago, we found in our archives documents of the period of the Second World War that helped us to understand the following decision of the Comune di Forlì about some buildings, some important buildings. And if we didn't find these documents, it would be very difficult to go on with the work. So to keep the archives in a good way is important also for the job, the actual job. Esatto.
For the restoration.
Esatto, for the restoration of a building, to understand the plan of the city, and so on. So the importance of archive is very strong for me, almost. And you can find all the documents, all the records. Before working in the Comune di Forlì, I worked for the Provincia of Forlì, that is another entity, another statal entity of Italian nation. And in this archive, I found the fund of abandoned children who was abandoned by their mother because they could not care for them. And there was a collection of letters written by mothers, of medals given by mother to their children, divided in two, because the mother hoped that one day could find the baby and could put together again the medal. And it's very, very moving to find this documentation, because you can find, you can understand the story of a moment of our city, of our history, and so you can find something very interesting in an archive if it is good managed in a good way. Maybe something unexpected. Always in archival in the communal archive, we found the maps of 17th century of Comune di Forlì. We didn't expect to find them, but for us it's very interesting to discover these documents, because you can go back in the past and think how was the city or the situation in those days. So archives as history is one of the themes that we can think about. But also archives as a repository of documentation, and we can have several types of archives. We talk about government and other public body archives, communal, municipal, provincial, federal. They work with a public mandate. they are governed by law. Collect and preserve institutional memory, so have a duty of institutional preservation of records. We always have records management programs. We have a duty of to keep these records with informatic programs with that we have to use with a law that tells us about this and how to do this. We have materials in all formats. We don't have only paper or textual records, but always digital records, photographic material, images, always moving images. So we have to deal with a lot of records in different formats. But there are always also other type of archives, corporation, organization archives, that preserve their institutional memory. Some of them have records management programs, some of them no. It depends on the dimension of the organization, the money that have to spend to invest in this team. And always, typically, they have also materials in all formats, like government archives. But there are also community archives and historical society archives that preserve history of a region, of a historical period, or of a team or a subject, a person. You can have also personal archives, a writer that are to keep, that have to be taken in a good way. So archive is a word that can involve a lot of organization and type of organizations and government or other bodies. So, what is an archivist? Archives are managed by people that have studied to be an archivist, because it isn't a job to invent, but you have to follow some important rules, because we have to keep the records in a good way, and we don't have to lose our documents. So you have to study the profession. Archivists are trained in preserving the original material and to help people to find them. We have the duty not only to preserve, that it is important, but also to find the documents. We can't think to put the document in a box and so I'm okay. We have to organize them and to look for them. So preserve and research the documents. The archivists work with paper documents, photographs, maps, films, computer records. And they possess a very broad and deep knowledge about records. So they study for it and are involved in many phases of the record's life cycle. After I explain you some terms that can help you to understand better what I'm telling you. The work of the archivist, the work of research and analysis, help people to access to the records. So the archivist is the manager of the records, of the archive. And another professional figure in the records management is the records manager. That I am. I am a record manager. I'm not an archivist. I studied for be a record manager. The archivists have a more classical study. Records managers are more oriented to work with organization in the current situation of the records. So I work with government, corporation, to make sure that the records that come in my organization are very organized and help the offices to receive them and to collect them in a good way. So I and all the record managers make sure that offices receive the records they deserve. They store in a good way, and after they have handed to use them, they bring them to the archive correctly. So I have to follow all the life cycle of the record, from the arrival in my organization to the disposal in an archive. So records manager work with the current situation, from the birth of the record until its disposal. Archivists work only with archives, only with records that have ended to be used by offices. So the difference is this. The basic of archives, some terms to help you to understand. When we talk about records, we talk about collections. Collection is a group of documents brought together because they have some common characteristics. So, for example, subject, records about Forlì. I have to collect always that I have about Forlì. It could be a paper document, a photograph, a video, or collection about the form. For example, in a municipal archive, you can find deliberations, the records that the municipality write to take decisions about the life of the city. The scope, it's always the same, almost the same. The scope of the records, invoices, all the invoices of the municipality. So you collect them about their characteristics. My collection of personal photography images. So you unite them not with an archival intention, but with your mental organization. You keep them because they are all about one thing. You collect them. Another important word to understand is finding aid. I told you that archivists organize the records, so they put them in an organized way, but they have to find them. And if you don't have a finding aid, something that help you, a tool that help you to find this record, you won't be able to reach them. So it's very important to build finding aids that facilitate the discovery of information over records and facilitate that retrieval. So after we will see what could be finding aids. So but you have to think that you have to manage tools that helps you to find records when you have put them away, when you find them in an archive. Claudia told me that in ATRIUM ATRIUM have a lot of images that are always put in a hard disk. You can't find them in this way because you have if you want to find one, you should click to push everyone and look if it is the one you are finding. No, it is not a very good way to find images or records. So you have to have a tool that helps you to find the good record. Folder is when we talk about folder, we talk about something that contains paper records, a sheet of paper or heavy paper that serves as a cover, and in which you put documents or records. But you have folder also in the computer. It's the same. You have a folder in the computer in which you put your informatical records. So a folder is the place where you go to organize records. Fonts is the whole of the documents and record. Fonts is the archive. You put in the archive, in the font, all your records, regardless of form or medium. In the archive of Municipality of Forlì, we have paper records, informatic records, but they all regard the activity of the municipality. But we don't put them as we want, but we organize them with a logical subdivision. We organize them, dividing them, thinking about the function of the municipality. And we put them all together thinking about function in a portion of the archive. And we divide them always in the font. We put them all the records of the municipality. So we could have records of the beginning of the last century and of yesterday. We collect all the records of our organization, our family, and we arrange them into 3 degrees. Series that help you to arrange records. As I told you, thinking about the function of the subject that created the record. They have particular forms, so it could be records about, I don't know, the decisions of the municipality, or money that we can give to families that need assistance. So we divide them because thinking about the function that we are managing. Into the series we put the file or dossiers, or the file is the aggregation of the records that participate in the same affair. So we put in the series a file of for example, a project, or file about the construction of the building. And also in the file you can put physical or electronic records. The smallest archival unit is the item, the record, one item. So it's the smallest unit of an archive. It could be a letter, a report, or a photograph. And when we put together items, we construct, first of all, file and then series. So the archives are divided in these three ways: series, file, and items. Another important thing to analyze when we talk about archives is the provenance. The information regarding the origins, the custody, and the ownership of an item or group of items. The provenance is the concept that we have to understand for building our archives. We have in ATRIUM all the documents that owns to ATRIUM. The provenance is the ATRIUM organizations. In my home, I have my photographs, so I have the origins of the documents is my person. It's important because we have to collect records thinking about the provenance. So we have to organize records and accumulate them thinking of this question. All the documents of Municipality of Forlì go together, all the documents of ATRIUM go together. And we respect the original order of the documents. It's a very important principle for archival science because the records are organized with the creation of with the original creation. We don't have to mix records when we find them. If I find a file with records kept in the past, I have to put them in this way. I don't have to mix because I can create a very confusion in the organization of records. I don't have to mix records that I found, so it's very important. Every record is to be identified, has to be identified with a number or something that can help me to find them when I need it. It's called reference code. It could be called a protocol number for our organization, for startup organization. But it's important that every record is identified in a unique way. Otherwise, it's very difficult to find it. We're talking about documents, but the word that we use for archival science is always records, because, as I tell you, records as a document made or received in the course of an activity and preserved. Records has the importance, a very importance, and it has to be preserved for a long time. So if we read about archival documents, we can think about records. Archival material is always records. Document, we can always think about records. Electronic records is always a record that we have to perform in electronic form, and it has the only difference that is encoded in a computer and is an electronic form, but we have to preserve it in the same way that paper records. We usually deal with textual records that are written records or sometimes handwritten. As I told you, letters from mothers were always handwritten because in the beginning of the last century they don't have computers. And textual records are accessible without the aid of a machine. So we can look them with the eye. But we only we have not only textual records. Then we see other type. Another important thing that we have to think about is if we have in front of us an original record or a copy. The original in archival science is a complete finished document capable of producing the effect for which it was created, and it's issued in that form. If we have a contract in a paper form, the original record is that. We can find in it the text of the document, the handwrite la firma, the signature, and it has a legal value. So we have to keep them, to keep it and to preserve it. We have to put a very strong attention on this because we can preserve the original of documents. The copies don't especially if you think about records that have a legal value, we have to preserve the original because the copy don't have a legal value. So in law, the first document which with other instrument may be transcribed or copied or imitated. So we have to, when we manage an archive, we have to select only original records. So the importance of this is very strong. As I told you, the original have a legal value, the copy is not. So if we have to think, if we don't have enough space to collect all our records, first thing to do is to divide copies by original. We keep originals, we can destroy copies. But pay attention, don't destroy originals. Never we can destroy original, or some of them we can after a process of evaluation that we see after. We don't have only textual documents, but we could have graphic materials, pictures, photographs, illustration, prints, and the products of other pictorial projects. So all these are always documents, records that could have a very important a strong importance for our archives because they document, for example, the modification of the city or the life of a person. Moving images are always records with images, with or without sound, that may present the illusion of motion. For example, in the municipality of Forlì, we record the activity of the municipal council, that is an assembly that take decision about the life of the city. We record all the activities in a file that is kept in our archives, and it is visible in the internet pages of the municipality of Forlì. It is important because it is the testimoniation of the work of this important organ of the city. and always, and it can also help people to understand what is the work of this organization, of this assembly. So it has a very important value as a document, as a record. We can always have multimedia records that combines several major types, and also can be preserved for our activity. We could have philatelic records, stamps, and other documents created to signify payment due for postal services. So we could collect always them. They have historical value. We could have sound recording and technical drawings. For example, the plans of the city, the buildings that we are managing and we are building in our town. With technical drawings, for example, here in Forlì, we have a lot of people that is accessing our archive because Italian government has approved a law that give contributions to people that improve their houses. So if you improve your house, if you look made works in your house, you can have a contribution about the government, a contribution that in some cases cover all the amount of money you have spent. And in these days we have a lot of people that is going to our archive to find the technical drawings of their houses, because these technical drawings are all put in our archives. If you have lost yours in your home, you can collect them there. So the importance of having these drawings taken in a good way is very strong, because people, if it needs them to receive a benefit from the government. So archive is not only, when we think about archive, we don't have only to think about documents, handwritten or electronic records. We could have a lot of things that helps to understand the town, the story of the town, to help people to have benefits. So the importance of a good organization of the archive is evident. If you want to know something more about archival terminology, I have put in this slide some link to glossaries that are available, freely available in the internet. They are made by international organization. The best is, for me, is the glossary. I don't know if we could go in there. C'è il collegamento qui su internet, ci dovrebbe essere, però clicco, control click, ok, this is the glossary of the international organization project group that is called Interpares. It's an international group of researchers, all experts in archival sciences, that have made studies about the the organizations of archives. I participated in the second phases of the Interpares project as a member of the Italian group, and we built this glossary. The importance of this is that you can find it in a lot of languages. So if you want to know in Italian how is access, for example, if you click accesso, you can find what is the explanation of the word, and also the traduction in other languages. And for me, it's really interesting because if you want to know a word, you can find it in your languages. English, for example. Analog record. It's a paper records, for example, and you can find it in different languages, and you can understand the meaning of the word. This Interpares project, other dictionary is the Society of American Archivists dictionary. Now I go on. Sorry. It is all in English, but if you put in them a word, you can find it. And it's you can find it also in alphabetical order. Another glossary is the Canadian Association of Archivists.
Sorry, if I understand well, the purpose of these glossaries and it's basically for the use of researchers that might want to look for documents in foreign archives. So, for example, if I'm an Italian archivist, but I'm doing research about Charles V and I'm in Barcelona, I need to interact with a Spanish archive. So I go there and look for all Spanish terminology,
Exactly.
That's the use.
Yes. Okay. See, the glossary that can help you in this research is the first, is Interpares Trust. The other are all in English. I put here the American and Canadian glossary because Canada, especially with the University of Vancouver, is one of the most important nation about archival science. There is an archivist, an Italian archivist, that is Luciana Duranti, that rules the University of Vancouver, all the researches in archival science in Canada, Italians, but is Canada one of the most important? She sometimes comes to Italy and she isn't more able to speak in Italian. She forgets words, and she always asks, how can you tell it in Italian? She's Italian, but she doesn't remember Italian. So okay.
Sorry, may I propose to have a 15-minute
Yeah.
break?
Okay.
For both us and you.
So thank you.
We can all have a little break. The toilets are just
The life cycle of records. When we talk about records, we have to understand that we have not to focalize only on the moment that we received the record or that we put the record in an archive. The record has his own life that begins when in the moment that we received it or we create it. We can receive the record if something sent us a letter, for example, or we create the record in our computer and we use it for our activity. And after the creation, we use the record. We can modify it or, for example, use it for our activity, working activity. In this moment, we have to maintain the record in its original creation to protect it from destruction. And after we have finished to work with this record because its administrative value is ended, we have to think about its second life, that is disposal in an archive or a destruction, because we can destruct the record or if we have something legal that can permit us to do it. So after the disposal, if we have to keep it forever, we put it in an archive and we preserve it in the good way, or if we have to destroy it, his life is ended. But we have always to think about these phases. And it's very important to think about these phases because when we talk about electronic records, because electronic records are very difficult to handle. If you create an electronic record in a wrong way, in a wrong form, you can lose it very easily. If you have a paper record, if you put it in a box, after 20 years you find it maybe with some dust, but it's the same. If you have an electronic record and you don't preserve it in the good way, after 20 years you can read it. You can't read it anymore. So it's very important thinking about the life cycle of records, because you have to build a record that is always readable in the course of the year. But we look at better after. So, but think about record begins his life when we create and receive, and ends his life in the archive. So all the phases of his life are hard to put together. I have to put together. Another concept to remember is that of preservation. The process and operation to stabilize and protect the documents, protect against damage, deterioration, and if we talk about records that we put in an archive or if we found them, if we found old records, the process to treat records that are damaged. So preservation is the concept that makes us to understand that records are we have to keep records in the good way, preserve them from destruction. Preservation is also the transfer of information to another medium. For example, if we have an electronic record, maybe we keep them in our computer, but it isn't the good way to preserve it. We have to transfer it to another media that it's an archive, a digital archive. It could be an hard disk or a cloud system. Preservation for an electronic record is the transfer to a good media that can keep it in a safe way. Preservation or conservation are the same thing. Another word that we have to understand is disposition schedule. Schedule. That is a document that helps us to identify the records that we have to keep or destroy. It's a very important task to find the records to keep and to destroy, because we have to make a choice about the life of these records. For a government organization, municipality, province, there is a disposition schedule that is written by the government. So we have to follow an indication that is official. So we don't have many problems to understand what records to keep and what records to destroy. If you are a private organization, a small organization, maybe you don't have it. So it's very important to understand what to keep and what to destroy, and maybe it would be better to do it with an archivist, not by yourself, because you can destroy, you risk to destroy documents that are important. But after we look better what is a disposition schedule. This is an example. You can put here the description of records, the retention period. You can keep it, for example, for 10 years. The date of records, the disposition method, the number of records, and the disposition date, for example. But after we look it better. So this was the general information about archives. Do you have something to ask me before I go on? No? Okay.
Well, I actually have a question about digital records. Because we just said that a proper way to preserve them is to transfer to a proper media. But what kind of media? I mean, for example, a Word file, okay? So it's editable, and if it's a Word file created with Word 2003, for example, we already have issues of compatibility with the current software.
Yes.
So what can we do to put that record to the archive?
Okay. Okay. So, in Italy, I know my situation, but I think archival science is general. So I'm talking about Italian laws, but the archival science is the same in all over the world. So before we adopted in Italy the correct archival rules, archivists all over the world follow them, already follow them. So I talk about concepts that are condivisi, shared all over the world. For electronic records, digital records, there are formats that are better to use than to build the records, to create the records. We began with words because it was the most common format and the most common program used all over the world when we began to use computers. But Word has a big problem. It's a proprietary format, so you have to buy a program to read it and to create a record. And it's old. In a scale of readability and conservability of the record, Word is one of the worst of the world. One of the worst. Archival Science has chosen other formats that can be readable and conservable during the time. So the best way to create an electronic record is to create with a text editor, and before send it to the conversation, convert in PDF form. But the best way is to create the record immediately with Word or ODT format and convert immediately in PDF. Then you can subscribe it already in PDF form and preserve it already in this form. So if you create an electronic record, you have to convert immediately in a PDF format. Better is PDF-A format, that is archival format individuated all over the world. PDF/A. And all text editors have the possibility to convert it in PDF-A. And then you can subscribe it with a digital signature and preserve it. If you have the possibility to put it in a server, like here in the municipality of Forlì, is the first step to do. If you don't have a server, you can put it in a hard disk. But it isn't the only thing to do, because you have only one copy. You have to, it's better to have more than one copy. So, for example, here in Italy or in Emilia-Romagna region, all the public offices have the possibility to send their records to archive, digital archive, regional digital archive that keeps them. So you have two copy of records, two originals, if it's better to call them originals. One in your server, in your computer and your server, and one in the original deposit. The original deposit. So you have a safe copy, because if your server goes down, you have the possibility to find it. If you are a small organization, it's always better to have two copies of records, electronic records. So you can keep it in a hard disk and then one copy in the cloud, for example. But the format is very important. This is really connected with the life cycle records. You have to build the record, to create the record in the good way. So if you begin with the Word format, you can't read it anymore in a few years.
Excuse me, when you said PDF to A,
A.
is the Adobe Illustrator?
Yeah.
But this is also a program that you have today.
No.
She was not talking about
So
a software. She's talking about
A format.
the format of the file. So it will not just be the extension, of the file. It's not just .pdf, but it's .pdf/A.
A.
A.
Like
Letter A.
letter A.
Yes.
you don't have to pay for this. You can create with free software and read it with free software. You don't have to buy Adobe programs.
Excuse me for my
No.
ignorance then.
No.
Because I was wondering that maybe in 20 years these programs will be still be there, or
Yes.
we have to, this is the what we don't know. No?
The problem the problem is that with electronic records is that compatibility with formats in the course of time. So the choice of the good format from the beginning is very important, because otherwise you can't read it anymore.
Sorry, one more question. Is it possible to create the PDFA extension also for scan files?
No.
Because we also have that.
No. And
Non è la prima come la firma questione. Lei ha detto, if we draft the document with whatever document writer, we transform it into PDFA, then we can digitally sign it. Okay, and that's fine. That's the original copy. You can keep as many copies as you want. My question was, I have a hard copy version of a contract. That is the original one. What I do now, like here at the office, is I scan it and I put the original into a paper folder, and I have the digital into a computer folder. But it's not, but it's not the right way to do it, because I should have created a PDF/A.
The problem is one. PDF is good. It's also good. Okay, and if you scan it, I don't think you can scan it in a PDFA. I always seen PDF.
Yes.
If you want to create a digital copy, you can do it. It's a PDF. You can sign it always with a digital signature. No problem. The problem of the scanning of paper document is that it's a copy that it's very poor. For example, if you have to put it in an internet site, a PDF with scan isn't readable. For people with problems, for accessibility. Yes, it isn't readable.
Because it's an image.
Yes, it's a still image.
Yes.
And maybe it's weaker than a PDFA, but PDF is also good.
Still good.
Okay. Okay, go on. What can we do to improve our archives with low cost, at low cost? Because when we think about a work in the archive, we have to think about a lot of money, because if the archive is of analogical records, if you have to order it, it costs a lot of money, but it costs also to buy electronic devices to organize our record. If you want, I give you some questions to answer, because I'd like to understand your situation. So maybe if you can answer the question, so we can understand what is your degree of order. Sono due per uno. To answer if you want to think about an organization of an archive. I don't want to make you an exercise, but if you want, when you go back home, if you want to organize your archive, this is the way to do. Now, if you want to tell us if you have some problem, if you want to tell us what is your situation, if you want, I will be happy. But it's just a round table to understand what if you need something or what to tell. What you want.
I like the 7th point. What limitations do you have on storage space? Do you have your storage distributed in the space? About limitations, very little space for physical paper, and for digital material, very little knowledge of what we can do, especially in terms of technology. What is the proper hardware we need to keep photos, for example? I keep records.
I think that the problem of storage space is common, and because also both on paper and electronic records, we need to have space. And what to do? Yes, the problem is who has the authority to choose the records to keep and to destroy. I think that it isn't your task. If you are an institutional organization, you should have a law that tells you what to do. But you also have to do it with an archivist. No, you can't take the responsibility to destroy records. It isn't possible. It's a very, very strong responsibility to destroy. So if you don't have an archivist, think about if you can manage, if you have enough money to buy the work of an archivist. If you have paper records, you could destroy the copies of the records. You can reduce the volume. The copy, I found in my archives of also 7 copies of records, 7, 8, the deliberations of junta, maybe 7, 8 of the same record in the same folder. This is a first task you can do without problem. In digital records, if you have more copies of the same record, you can free the space. And there are free programs that can choose in your computer if there are more copies of the same records, maybe. The problem of the space is if you don't have a space, think about if you can buy larger spaces, also physically or electronically, because there is no other choices. Or you destroy the record you don't need, but you have to do a choice. I have done a list of what we have to keep always, and then we look it for. But the problem is that you have you have to have a legal cover to destroy records. So the first is for that I put what laws govern your archives, because you have to do. First of all, you have to see if there is a law in your country that tells you what to do, and I think that should be. The problem of storage is strong. Is a big problem. It's a big problem, but you have only 2 choices: destroy, organize, And if you are able, if you have the time, and destroy the copies, not the originals, but if you have more copies, you can free spaces. In some folder, I found, for example, copies of law that you print the law that govern your activity. You can put them. Yes. So all the things that are not documents, think about if you can put it away. Documents, no, you can't. So, and in electronic, as I tell you, as I told you, you have to keep an original in your server and another one, almost another one, in another place. Then all the rest you can cancel. Okay. See?
In a different way. Sorry. We had the opportunity to work with a foreign archivist who came in our association for a month with the Erasmus Plus exchange program. And she made an inventory of all we had. She looked at all our desks, all our cupboards, and so she inventoried it. And she made a proposition of classification, so just like you told us, about the series. So we have the administrative series, human resources, the projects, the museography and archaeological site, and so on. And so now we know when we have something to archive, oh, that must go in that series. So that was really the first step. The second one was to make a schedule for the sorting, what we can eliminate, because in that first step we didn't eliminate, we just classified. And that was my work last year during the lockdown. It was just a perfect timing to see what are the legal things. So I'm a historian, but I'm married to an archivist, and he was a voluntary aide. If I had questions, I had my professional just at home, and it was just perfect. So second step was to have that schedule. And so now we know for human resources, we need to keep some documents for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. Though some we need to keep indefinite. And now I'm doing backwards work now that we have that schedule, I can look, for example, what I'm doing just now is the museography that we opened in 2009. We have at least 3 desks full of archives in at least 5 or 5 times the same documents, and we can make more space once we eliminate it. So it's what I want to say is, at the beginning we were overwhelmed, but we took it step after step, and it takes time. Voilà. But it was very good also to have a professional aid at the beginning for step 1, and then my husband for the second one, and now I'm the archivist of the association.
Then you can do it, but you have had the help of an archivist to build the rules.
Exactly, yes.
And it's a good way. You have found the classification, the series, put them all together in the space, personal documents, administration, or ever in the space. After that, you have chosen what to keep and what to destroy. And then you can organize and free the space. Yes. This is the good way to do, but you have to have the help of an archivist to do this.
Yes. You said that you had this archivist coming to you with an Erasmus Plus program.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a project specifically about archives, or? Because we are really interested too. We need free access because I don't have no money for this.
We are in another network of European royal residences, and they applied for the Erasmus Plus exchange. And we were just welcomed, well, we proposed to have an archivist coming over. And so there was one from Versailles. There was one from Versailles, they're just perfect. I think they're a team of 10 archivists. And she came over for a month, and that was actually enough to remake that classification. And she was French speaking, so that was a help also. That's maybe the problem with Erasmus, because it's between... yeah. Well, about the law, it was no problem, because the principles of archivists, like you said, it's the same everywhere, and she just got the Belgian law for archives, but she understood the language of our projection.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm not an archivist, but I can give my experience as a researcher. So what can I do? I can say that in Portugal, our archives are entirely ruled. In what concerns to regulation about privacy, this is now a great, I can't say problem, but strict. We have the publication of the private regulation, and there is documentation that cannot be accessed to the public. 30 years or 25 years?
25 years.
25 years. So if we can access the documentation very contemporary, is not accessed to the public, only to the persons who are in that event. I think that there is a problem now with the private archives. What can I say about this? Each more, the organizations have the reason that they need an archivist, even in the current phase. For instance, the football clubs, they now, in Portugal, the more important football clubs, as an archivist, that is very important to conserve the memory, and very important to the future story of the sports. But the prizes, even not all, but the more important, for instance, banks have an archivist. Yes. The Portugal Bank, and not only the Bank of Portugal, other banks have also archivists. So, to all concerns the copyright, I, as researcher, I have to mention entirely. So I cannot use a photo or other else. I have to indicate the credits of the images. That's what we call in all publications. So this is my point of view and my experience as a researcher. There is strict rules, and the researchers know them.
Briefly go through the questions. We had also some discussion among us, considering both the bodies that we work in, so the municipality aspect and the European Route of Ceramics as an association, which I'm going mostly to talk about. First of all, at the time being, we don't have such amount of records and documents that actually they would require from the very beginning, this is something I really do agree with, that they would require a good structure to start from, but the reality at the moment being is that because of the amount is not that big in terms of document, we are actually self-archiving the documents. Mostly, we are dividing according to two criteria. One is chronological, and the other one is thematic. So I would say, for what concerns the association, we divide what is administrative and finance, and what is pictures, photographs, videos. We also have some audio material, audio file. So that's what we are doing for the moment. In addition to that, when it comes to where we store the files and the documents, part of it is stored in each, let's say, in the servers or in the hard copies, hard disks, or hard copies of each partner. And what concerns the collective of the association is stored in the Secretariat of the European Route of Ceramics. So that's the reason why we would need eventually to have a system and a well-connected network also of archived information. I agree with the copyright and privacy policy. Basically, regarding to that, especially for videos and pictures, we make reference to the European GDPR, but it has happened to me that, for example, when we need to provide pictures, for example, for publications or press, I have different requirements from the different partners. So, for example, when it applies to Italy, I always usually have either the copyright or the photo credits in the caption of the picture. But for example, from Germany, the copyright requirements really need to have a separate file, maybe a Word document or something, really specifying what the copyright is. So that's what we have to pay attention to. It is different when it comes to a larger organization like the municipality. Would you like to add something? So Paula is going to talk about that with regards to the culture department.
Yes, because as I work in the cultural office of the municipality, we have, as a whole, an archive service. So we have a unit of our structure that specifically deals with protocol, archives, and so we have a unique system, which now is digital, and so we archive documents and records, and our purpose basically is to have all the documents tidy. I mean, in a way that we can find them when we need them, and because sometimes we have to explain our activity outside our structure. This is basically when we need all these documents. So I'm not an archivist, and I started to work there like 2 years ago. So we had to follow a course. We have to attend a course about archive protocol. And at first, I thought it was like overwhelming. It was like, I'm not going to... I thought it would have been very, very hard to learn the procedures and how to do it. But in fact, I started to do it. Some colleagues helped. And now I think it's very useful because everything is in one place. It's digital, so when you look for things, you know where to look. You can use keywords. You can, for example, search documents looking for the email address they come from, or for, I don't know, the keyword of a museum or an event. So I think it's very useful because on the other side we have our office as a internal server where we store documents that don't need to be on the archive system. And it's very hard because everyone archives things in this system in a very personal way. So it's very hard to find information in that internal archive, which is luckily not the official archive, but I think it would be useful to try to apply maybe not the same strict rules of the general system, but maybe to have some rules for the internal organization, because sometimes it's hard to find things and people change, while in this system it's easier because you find things. So for us it's quite easy, yes.
My question is both for the participants and for Sabrina. I mean, public entities, usually like municipalities or province here in Italy, have their own system put up, and they faced a digitalization phase. So as Paola said, now the archive is digital, it has its own rules, whatever. But all of this digitalization needs a software. Is it possible to not have a software and still manage it? I mean, or is there any software, open source or for free for use on the internet that can help? I mean, it will not be a substitute of a proper software like the one that municipality use, but is there any chance not to have to pay for such, I mean, software or tools? No. Okay.
For example, for images, there are softwares, and you can also, but after I have a section, I have a section about the finding aids and the metadata to put on records and images. On images, you can do it. You can make a catalog of them. For records, or you do something, but it's a long work. I don't know if there are programs, free programs. We pay. We have a software house that give us the program, and we pay for it and for his assistance. I really don't know if you can find something for records, but it's better to have. Maybe you can also do something with Excel or you,
that's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But just for a very little part of the records, just the protocol for communication, internal and external, and for contracts. But that's all the rest it's a jungle of documents of different types, from audiovisual to hard copies, paper materials, digital documents. So
you can do. There are programs that, but also I think there are also you can buy them to make inventory of records. Free, I really don't know. I can look for it. I don't know. really. Sorry, but
It was a bold question. I knew the answer was not.
a database. You should have a database to put the records in it. But yeah.
That is a problem. But this problem might be turning in their way. In Portugal, the National Archives, one fund, the acquisition fund was of Lisbon was all digitalized, supporting by a national organization that offered that to the archive. The National Network of Energy, that's it, or that? I think that the archives must have links with the citizens and some institutions and public institutions that can support the digitalization. Inquisição, quantos documentos tem? The Inquisition of Lisbon, millions of documents were all supported by public organizations and private organizations that offers that. That is a way that we have to think about. And in another way, the researchers also offers the digitalization to the institutions by paying what they want to be digitalized. That is a way. Sorry.
I understand perfectly, but you know, the interest that other public and private bodies can have in the National Archive, you know, of Lisbon, it's not the same interest that ATRIUM can raise, you know. Yeah.
In Italy, we have a national organization that is called AGID. It's the Italian Agency for Digitization of Records that offers programs to keep records. When you speak, I remember maybe it's in reuse. It's free and you can use them. Maybe if you can see here if you can find something for Italy almost. It's an informatic protocol program. Maybe just we can look. If you want, I come one day and we ok. Questo è del Trentino. They have made a program especially for a free program for protocol for informatic registration of records, but I don't know if there is maybe it's sold.
There are also families that want to give money. We must do for them.
Questo anche per la contabilità pubblica, Ministero degli Affari Esteri. Vedi? There are many programs to look.
Verify.
To verify, yes. Okay. Okay. Something.
I have a question. Let me put the camera so I can record also the questions. Hello. So in our organization, as a root, all our archives are more work material, and we have it filed somehow. But our members do have I think big heritage and historical materials, and they use different archival solutions, each one its own solution. We were talking before in the street a little bit, and thinking about if it will be the possibility of making something to make them share these archives. Are there other experiences of sharing archives which are in a different format, each one organized probably in a different system?
The only way is to digitize the records to share to share with other. With paper records, it's difficult. Digitization is the only way to share records, I think, or not. Yeah.
And if they are already digitized, how can they make it talk to each other?
Maybe with you can use the internet the only way, because how can you with proprietary programs that you have in your computer, you can reach outside your organization. So the internet is the only way to put together records, to share a space, and also you can think about a cloud servers and put them the records in there, or a public site in which you can put in the records.
Yes, the cloud, but cloud for the entire route with members from different countries is another level of problem. It's very hard. We haven't we have problems. We are not organized at the transnational level as a seat that manage common document like verbale, come si dice? Minutes of assemblies or other meetings, but in fact, in our experience, the common documents, the transnational documents, are Italian and fully located documents, are not the document of the entire organization. So this is a good question, but we are at one step, yes. But it is important because we have to think in this way. We are not a simple organization, but a network. So in the cloud, we have to think how to organize the common. It's a very interesting question, but we are not at this level.
It's my idea, naturally. I think that the importance of doing these archives is not well known, especially in the public organization. And this is the reason why now we are in a worse situation than after the Second World War, especially with the project. And the public organization don't know how many time need for doing this. Because when I do my project, I look at the archives of the First and the Second World War. A project can stay in a box. And in the box you can find every kind of situation that the engineer or the architect found it. Now, for a project, we have about 50 boxes. And it's very difficult to put everything that is about that project in an archives. And so we are in the situation of the medieval situation, when only the project manager knows everything about that project. And the organization has to know the time that you need for do this organization, or what you do, or what you speak, or what you... Because they don't understand really how is your work. This is a problem. And so we have to say, like the meeting of today, that it has an importance that is incredibly wide, really. Because they telephone to me home and say, 10 years ago, that building, and not only in the Comune of Forlì, but you go with at the Sovrintendenza, is the organization that has a regional importance about all the heritage of buildings. Their archives are terrible, really. It's difficult to find something, especially after the 60 of the Novecento. When you look at the project of the 1925, you look not only the main correspondence, but only, come si dicono, le male copie, the draft that all the people that were involved in this wrote. When I did the project of the Santarelli Asilo, was incredible, all the documents that I found, but was on the rooms of the Santarelli, not on the main archives. And probably, if I didn't look at them, probably were destroyed. But so it is not well known the importance of this. It's very incredible importance. If you have not this, our memory will lost. Yes, we have the good software for the delivery, but is the 5% of what is behind, I think, of my job, behind the situation that lead at the end of the work. So we need really someone that understands how it is important. And you have to give time to people that work at this to put all the drawings, pictures, ideas, because without this, our future will not understand why at this time at the Santarelli something changed. So it's not a problem only of the organization where everyone has a own idea how to put in your computer the organization of the archive. First, you have to call people and say, well, this is the way for the organization that you have to follow in your work. Anyway, okay, thank you.
I just want to add something. I agree with you. The problem is that we have based all our works on the memory of a single person. I still, when in Provincia di Forlì they don't find a record, they call me, and it's 6 years I don't work there. But I know where the records are, but it isn't the good way. And also is your situation. And the archival organization is not only the recording of a document, of a record in a system, because the archive is not only the recorded document, but there are also any quantity of information that you can find outside the information system of the management of an information system of records. If you have a draft in which the manager or the project management have written by hand a note, it's important to keep it. But you don't find it in the record management system. So archive is bigger than records management, and the information, if it isn't organized, it's lost. So it's important what you said, but it isn't understood. I don't know why, but in archives I have people with problems, physical problems. I have a people in a wheelchair in the archive. Cioè, how can you manage a box? So, but there is no understanding in these themes. Sulla scala, esatto. Yes, I stop with this slide, and then we go on in the afternoon. If you to organize our records, we could use these methods. A catalog records that gives information about the collection. From each item, you can do a card which explains, for example, names of individuals in a photo or other data. Or you can use a finding aid that is usually a program that can help you to to find the document. Then we look better these things. Just 5 minutes.
No, 40. We still have 35, 40 minutes to go.
Okay. So I go on. Okay. I asked you something about privacy because we have to consider the situation of our records. And if we have problems of privacy, we have to think about a safe access of them. Because not all records are suitable for access, for immediate access. Even if think about paper records, analogical records, or electronic records, we can show them to everyone. In a record management system, also in a municipality, not all the people that work in the municipality can see everything, because there are restrictions on the access of documents. Because and even if you have to put a record on the internet, you have to think about privacy problems. Because if in the records there are information about living people or confidential information, we have to protect them. If we have doubt, it's better not to make available these documents, these records. How it's already said, in Europe, all the matter of privacy of personal records is under the regulation of the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. That is all the same in all Europe. So we have a law that is the same for everyone, with some specification for every country, but the basic law is the same. So it's important to protect personal records, And if you have access to your archives or to your offices from other people, you have to protect records also physically. So, for example, if you have files or paper files with personal information, you should put them in a locker. They should be put in lockable cabinets and keep them locked. An example that we always do is if the come si chiama la donna delle pulizie? Quella che viene pulita.
Yeah, the cleaning lady or the maid.
The maid that came to clean your office is curious and read your paper documents, and in the documents there is a situation of a person that has problems, that are financial problems or physical problems. You don't have to permit that these problems are visible. So lock the documents. If in an archive, a big archive should be better to have monitors that control the access to the archive. It would be a good way to take care of records that are moved or removed from their space. For example, with a register that register the movement of the records. So it's a way to preserve the privacy of people. Okay. Managing our archive. We have talked about our archives, our situation. What can we do? Why we keep records? We keep records because we create records to provide information about what happened in our organization, what was decided, and because this record have a value as evidence and as history, because records report us about past policies, discussions, action, and decisions. They are the basics that explain us why a decision was made. And they serve also to communicate outside the decisions that we took. And so all organizations need to keep records in a good way. We talked about records management. We have to think about records management because we are to ensure that records are kept and remain available when needed. So I told you, we can't think about put the records in a box. We have to find them when we need it. And the records management give benefits from the organization. The colleague told us that an archivist go in their offices, classify the records, put them in the good places, and after that, after they have recognized the good situation of the record, they talked about how destroy the records they don't need. So the benefit is effective. With record management, you can keep an adequate management of our records, of our daily work, so we can put in the good way the correspondence, the emails, notice, and in a way that records in the future can be found when we need it. And we have to think that we don't have to base our work on the memory of a person, But we have to think that in the future, I won't be there. I'm sorry, but it's true that we in 50 years maybe or 100 years, none of us will be there. But the records should have the possibility to be found. So the records management helps us to organize. So the first purpose of managing records is to meet the business or operational needs of our organization. The first step to organize records is to think about in their active use. I told you the life cycle of records. So when I use them, they are active. So I can use them for my work. I have in my office. It's easy to find them because maybe the folder is on my desk. But when I stop to use them for my administration activity, I have to put them in an archive and become part of a collection. So they have in this time they have a cultural and historical value and also an administrative value because I may have the need to use them to, for example, to understand why Santarelli is a building of Santarelli was built in this way, or to understand why an agreement with another organization was taken. So it's important, the records management for this way. We did that exercise to answer this question because it's important to do a survey of our organization, to find our records, also to find if we have in our drawers old records that we have lost. Because we can build the history of our organization. If the organization is young, maybe it isn't necessary to do it, but in the case of a municipality, in Italy, commons have 1,000 years maybe, or 800 years. So if you have to put together all the history of a municipality, you have to find also all the records and to keep them all together. The really important work is to find all records. It's a way that if we don't reconstruct our memory, we can go on. There isn't no sensibility in these teams. I'm sorry, but it should be very important to do it. When we find old records, we have to put them in the archive. But as we told, it's also important to understand how create the records of today. As we told, if we choose the wrong format, we risk to lose our records in a couple of years. Think about our records is the first thing to do. The benefits. The first benefit of a good management of records is to prove evidence of our activities. If we have also only the need to show to others our activity, if we have a good records management, it's easy also to put on the internet our activity, to publicize our publish school English a lot of time ago. to prove evidence of our activity, but also to promote. It's easy to promote our history, to promote our identity to supporters and customers. So it's another reason to keep records in a good way. And also, it's important to support our activities. We, as told the colleague of Municipality of Faenza, it's easy to find a record in a record management system in which you put the records. You have finding aids, metadata that can help you to find a record, to read what is in the digital record, to reconstruct the story of a file. It's hard, for example, to organize the activity of the office. We have folders, but everyone, as told, put the records in his own way, and it's difficult to understand what the others have done. So the organization of records is important also for our activity of today. Digitization. This is the problem of today. We had paper documents. We still have. In Italy, I work on digitization almost from 2000, I think, 20 years and more. The first law in Italy about digitization of record is of 1997. The Bassanini, the Bassanini Uno is called, and it's written in this law that all records for public administrations should be on electronic format, and the contract should be electronic since 1997. In these days, we are still thinking about how to make a record, the electronic record, in the good way. We have changed the Italian laws almost every year, and it's really difficult for an office, also for an archivist, to understand what to do, because they change their decision every year. But the problem of digitization is important, because it's the only way to reduce the amount of paper that we have in our offices, to share records with other organizations, also for foreign organizations. In Europe, there isn't only the general data protection regulation that gives us rules, common rules to follow. In 2014, I think, European Union has approved a law that calls ADAS. That is a regulation that is all the same for all European countries, that gives common rules about electronic documents, records, electronic signature, exchange of records with email certified. And the purpose of the European Union was to give a common base to all countries to exchange records, and in the same way. So I can send a certified mail in French for a French organization it should have the same value that in Italy. But I think that we are at the first steps also with this law. But European Union is trying to improve these themes. So ADAS, if you want to look for this law, is the common base for electronic record and ADAS exchange between European countries. Digitization is a problem of today. As we told, when we manage digital records, we can think about putting them in a folder in our computer. It's impossible to find them. So we should use a digital preservation program. As I told you, I don't know for small organization what to suggest. But in this program, normally we can put the copy of the original of the record, the real record, and the data that can help us to find it. With them, we should have a plan that could recognize the media that become obsolete and that should be and suggest us to copy the record in a new media. Obviously, for a big organization, it's easy. For example, also the example of an Italian organization, public organization, we have programs that tells us what to do. For small organization, it's difficult. It's difficult to do it. We can, as these things we talked about, but I explain again. We can acquire a record in two ways, or we create it with a software, or we can acquire with external sources, scanning. And we have to deal with a large number of formats: doc, docx, GIF, JPEG, PDF. In Italy, we have EGID, as I told you, the National Agency for Digitization, that has created a special law that tells us how to manage an electronic record. Si chiamano linee guida per i documenti digitali. And it's a law that explains the way to create records and gives us all the indication of what is the good formats to use for every kind of record we have. So, for example, for text-to-R records, the best is the PDF. And for images, for example, JPEG, and so on. And it also tells us how to manage records that are being old. There are so you have to reverse in another format, to have to reverse in another storage area. I think that all the countries have this regulation. But as we told, their cover sizes is the same in every country. So we have to think about all these themes when we build a digital records, because it's it's very easy to make it to make a record not readable in a short time. So what we have talked about our paper records, what we have done before, thinking about what records we have, the organization of our records in our office is the same to do. Is the same to do with our digital records. So we should think what digital records have. We should create a program plan of our records. Think about what are the good records to keep in our collection. If we can understand what is in the collection, what the collection contains, think about the preservation needs. So if records is in a wrong format, we have to transfer in the good formats. If we don't have a backup copy, we have to do it. And if we can create a catalog and fund-gate, it's a good way to do. In the digital records, the fund-gates are called metadata, that are data that are joined with our record. Another problem is the collection is to be made accessible in the internet. So we told before, if we have to check if there are problems of intellectual property rights or privacy, and also if the formattation they are formatted in a way that can be migrated to another media. So these are questions that you know, but we have to think about them. The decisions on long-term custody, we told them, are very, very difficult because the records occupy places in our spaces. So if they are of paper, we have sometimes we have offices full of records of papers that sometimes we don't know even what is in these records is written. So we have offices full of records that are there from 20 years, and nobody knows what is in these boxes or in these cases. So it's important to value what to keep and what to destroy. Another question is to think about if the records contain sensitive materials. If you destroy a record that contains personal information, you don't have to put in the West. Cioè, è wrong, come si dice, una concezione sbagliata della documentazione. A wrong idea about records is that if you don't need it anymore, I put in the West. It's not possible. In Italy, we have, when we destroy, this is for stattal organization, municipal organization, if you destroy a records, we have to do a process that is written by the law. We have to choose records, to ask for permission to the culture ministry, and then we can destroy records only with specialized companies that destroy physically the records in a secure way. I don't know if you have such a prescription in our country, but it's better to destroy the records when physically. So don't put in the West. Don't recycle your records, because you risk to show outside personal data. So this is an attention to put in your activity. Even on your, cioè, if you have a record, also in your normal activity, it's easy to have records with personal data. You know, people that ask for a contribution to your organization, they put their name, their address, date of birth. Maybe they write personal problems. This data are sensible, are protected by the law. Even if you have to put this document in the bin, it's better if you destroy it physically, because it's easy that this data goes outside of your organization. So if you have records with personal data, destroy them, or in a legal way, like the municipality have the duty to do, or physically. Ci sono non so in inglese. But if you find in your offices historical records, it's better not to destroy. In Italy, we have the limit of Second World War, because the Second World War destroyed a lot of archives. The bombing destroyed the archives. So we can't absolutely destroy records that are before 1950. So if you add all the records, think about they have always historical value. Don't destroy them. Even if maybe you think that that is a record that has no importance, but for example, Claudia told me that found the bills for the building of come si chiama? Hai trovato le fatture del coso? Del collegio aeronautico.
Della parcella del progettista.
Sì.
Del Santarelli, credo.
No, del collegio aeronautico.
Erano quali materiali avevano usato?
Sì, the bills that explained us what materials have been used to build a Santarelli building.
So it is important in the restoration.
Yes. For our the normal activity, we don't keep bills because they really don't have a value historical. But in this way, in this case, it's very important to have taken them. So the decisions on record keeping, so they need to be carefully managed and documented. So this is important to think about. For this,
Non sono catalogate, ma le teniamo.
Un'altra cosa che ricorda solo Savarelli.
Cosa facciamo? Parlo delle cose, ci fermiamo, come siamo messi?
I'd say now it's lunch break, and we will meet again in the afternoon.
Okay. We have talked about the disposal of records. That is a very difficult situation because if we destroy a record that still have legal value or historical value, it's a very it's a problem, and we could have also legal questions. In Italy, it's a reato penale, a crime. It's a crime. So we have to begin a process of determining how long we have to keep our records. And we have to think about business needs, legal needs, and regulatory requirements if there are some of them.
Criminal offense, in any way.
So,
Criminal offense.
It's a criminal offense, the destruction of records. So, so we have to build a retention schedule that is a scheme that specifies how long and where records must be kept from the beginning of their life until their disposal. As I told, for major institutions, we already have this instrument, so it's easy to find the records. In other organizations, it has to be built, so it's necessary the help of an archivist or something, or maybe an expert of record management, almost. The benefits of the retention schedule and of the disposal of records is that we can minimize the cost because we reduce the volume of records, also in analogic form than in electronic form. We could improve the accessibility because we have a minor number of records to find, and we minimize the risks because we have less record to preserve. In terms of storage, we have the benefit to stabilize the growth of records. So we reduce the number of records that we have to keep. We put away the obsolete records, and we reduce the cost of storage. We improve the access of our records because we minimize the total amount of records in active storage, and we facilitate the retrieval of active records. So less records we have, it's easier to find them. We reduce the risk of management of records because obviously we have less record to manage, and so to manage, but with a records retention schedule, we make an analysis of what we have to keep and what we have to put away. So we make a motivated choice of what we are doing. So this helps us to reduce the risks of destruction of records. What I have to include in a retention schedule? The descriptions of the records. What type of records? Administrative, personal records, legal records. The number of the record, the serial, the ID number. The retention period of all records. Some of them we have to be kept 5 years, some 10, some forever. The dates of records, when we have built, when we have received these records. The medium, is paper or is digital. Where the records are stored, some of them maybe are in an analogical archive, some of them in a digital archive. The date and methods of records disposition, how we destroy them, and if the records contain any personal or confidential information. when we have all this information, we have also to determine if the records have still a fiscal value, a legal value, an administrative value, and historical value. If we have to apply archival requirements, so they have to be kept in series in files, and all requirements in terms of organization. This is a sample of retention schedule, for example, with 10, for example, annual budget for 10 years. This is a retention schedule for of a firm. Receipt for 10 years, bank statement for 5 years, and so on. I have made a list of what to keep, and I give you to discuss with you if you want, what you think about this list, and if you have something to add. No, well, this is not necessary. I've checked Italian laws, Italian retention schedule, and also schedules of other countries. And I've seen that almost these records are always kept forever in an unlimited preservation program. So you have to, for these records, you have to use a particular attention because they are the vital records of our organizations. Records that you have to keep forever because they are always very important for us. But at this list, we can also add historical records. We have said this morning.
Can I ask something? When you say correspondence,
Yeah.
in the past times it was I write you a letter, you
Yeah.
send a letter. Today with the email.
With the email is a problem. Because email, yes. In the past, we used to keep them, the letters, okay. Yes. With email, the problem is that we aren't able to archive, sometimes we aren't able to archive emails. So usually you keep it in your computer, but it isn't archival form, a correct archival form. For our organization, big organizations that have a records management program, emails, if they are important, were transferred to the records management system, and they are like a record, a normal record. We receive them in a special email, and we register in our programs. So it's like a record and assume all the characteristics of a normal record. For small organizations, it's difficult. You should preserve emails in a storage system, but it isn't so simple. Come si dice scaricare? Download. You have the possibility to download your emails from your programs. So if you think that an email is very important, you could download it and preserve in a hard disk and make them like a record, normal record. Otherwise, there is no other possibility. But you have to value if the email is very important or if it is only a chat. So.
We use our common sense, but I mean, there is no legal rule. It's true that there are emails that you don't need to keep it, but sometimes it's an official petition or someone that is asking for special information and you can only reply by an email.
Yeah.
We have to use our common sense.
Yes. Their ADAS regulation, European regulation, has changed the value of emails. In Italy, we thought that emails were records that have no value because they haven't a clear identification of the sender. Because if, for example, I send an email from my account, personal account, I am not identified clearly because I can put a name, nickname, some fantasy name, Fiorellino, Little Flower, but ADAS regulations has changed this view, and for ADAS, every record could have value. So it's important to read the content of the email, also if it is sent by a nickname, because it could have value now. So, for example, in Italy, some firms are firing people with emails or also with messages, telephone messages, because they are all electronic media that for ADAS regulation have legal value. So pay attention to these things, because now the consideration of digital records is very, very wide. So if you send an email, could have legal value, but also if you send a message from your phone, because you can be identified by your telephone number. It isn't so easy now to discard the value of an electronic message you have sent. Ho spiegato, si è capito. È un casino in Italian, in dette poche parole. It's a problem. Preservation, but there are also records that we haven't before I talked with Christina that she asked me, but if I receive material without value, books, oddio, pubblicità, non mi ricordo. Advertisement, we don't have to keep them, so we can put away immediately books if you don't have the need to keep them. These records are important, so for this we have to pay attention. Maybe in your organization there must be other records very important, but this is the average records to keep.
Can we ask a question? What do you mean by administrators' files?
For example, in the municipality of Forlì, the major is an administration, Sindaco. The major, the legal representative file, they all have one personal file with all their personal data, their acts, and they have to keep forever. Like the records of the personal works for the municipality or for the organizations. It's a personal files of administrator. legal representative. Yes. Do we have something else to ask about this? No? No, dopo, in addition to this, I have, they are here in the computer, I have also downloaded some other publications that can help you in, if you want to read them, also for disposal and for the archival science in general, for metadata. So if you want to go in deep in the questions, you can read it. Sì, sono qui. Ci sono 5-6. Dopo magari se c'è tempo ci guardiamo, se no. I have had some slides about the difference for archive and backup. It isn't the same thing. When we archive something, we made an operation, legal operation. We put in archive also analogical than that digital records that we have to keep for long-term conservation. So the digital archive is a data storage that is used for keep records for a legal value and for a long term. We keep them, in digital archive records that are important and has value for us. And we put them in an archive because we have chosen that we have to preserve them for a period of time that is defined by law or by our organization. So we have seen we have to make them retrievable because we have to find them when we need them. When we make a backup, we made another operation. The backup is a copy of data that is that are in production, and we have to the need to access, to modify, but we have also the need not to lose all our data. So it's a copy that we use for our work, for our today work. This is a copy that helps us if our original data are corrupted or distracted. So backup is a copy of data as is used when we need to restore our original data, but we don't have to think that backup is our archive, because backup isn't organized like an archive. It's only a copy. So it's important to understand this difference, because when we archive something, we made a process of archival science. When we make a backup, we made a copy of data. The purpose of an archive is the long-term retention of records. The purpose of the backup is to create a short-term copy of data. When we archive something, we move data in a separate repository based on a policy, a studied policy. When we make backup, we help us to not to lose records. Obviously, we can also make a catalog of backups, but it's more important to make a catalog of archives. When we construct an archive, especially if it's digital, we have to consider some key factors that are useful for us. The first is availability. We have to provide high availability of our records because we have the need to find them. in our, the colleague of Faenza said that it's easy to find records in their system because they are also, they are all well located, they are classified, they can use keywords to find them. So availability is the first requirement of an archive. Integrity, as I told this morning, we must preserve the integrity of the original records. And it's important, especially on digital data, because we risk to lose them. Authenticity, is preserve them in their original format. If we can, we should preserve all the versions of our records. If we begin with a PDF, then after 5 years we made a backup of it, or we transform it in another format, we should preserve all the versions of the record if we can. Security, we have to protect our documents against corruption, but also against access uncontrolled. We have to control the access of our archives and protect especially the records that that contains personal data. In our organizations, some records are readable only by some determined persons. If there is a record that contains personal data, it's possible to be seen only by 1 or 2 persons. The persons, they have to deal with this record and not for all the other clerks, for example. Another important factor of digital archives is metadata. Metadata is an information, a further information that helps us to find, understand, authenticate, trust, and use and manage information and records. This is a declaration of Archives of New Zealand. New Zealand, Australia, Canada are also very important on archival science. Metadata makes information and records easy to find because you add to your record other information that helps you to the retrieval of the record. Information and records should be linked in a persistent way. Obviously, without key metadata, the information and the records have less value. Example, photographs in hard disk without metadata, it's impossible to find unless you have you open one all the photographs and you look what is in them. When we think about metadata, we have, we have usually 2 types of data that we have the need to be stored. The file metadata, that they are a file that containing the structure of the file, the name, the format, and other elements that helps us to access the record, and the file data, the raw files that are stored on the tape. Why we use metadata? Because we have the need to create reliable and trustworthy evidence of our activity. So we have to add data to our raw records. And with this data, we can find, access, and identify records more easily. It's a value that we add to our records and that helps us to find it. in our records management system, metadata are also embedded in our programs. When we make a registration in our register, we have to fill in forms that are already done. So we have, it's for us compulsory to insert the number of the record, the object of the record, who sends the records, the office who received the record. So we have a track that we have to follow. For others, it's more difficult. But usually we have almost to add this metadata to find a record. Identifiers, such as document number, client numbers, supplier number, contract numbers, for example, a number that is associated with the record, date of registration or date of destruction, for example. Protective markings, if there are sensitive information. For example, in our record system, we have a key that protects records with personal data information. System process information that provides us information about the record and about the purpose of the action, and workflow information, the flow of the record inside our organization. Who receive, when we receive it, the office who receives, the office works the record, and when we put them in an archive. So this is a complex of data that helps us to find the record when we need. A particular case that could be interesting is the photo metadata, because photo are a media that we use in a very strong way, and we have the need to find. Photo metadata describes information about the rights of the image and the administration of an image. They could include date of creation, author, file name, content, themes, and more. This helps us to organize in a better way image file within a system. Without this metadata, you can only find a photo opening manually, and it's impossible. I have 5,000 images in my, 50,000 images in my computer, for example. In a photo metadata, we have three main categories of data: descriptive, information about what we see, the visual content, headline, caption, keywords, persons, locations, companies, artwork in the images. Rights, the creator, the copyright information, rights of the visual contents, including property of rights. For the rights, we can add administrative metadata with the creation date and location, instruction for the user, job identifiers, and other details. Obviously, without metadata, organizing images, it would be difficult. We use them to make the images more retrievable, obviously. We could use our folders in our computer to put photos for example, date, topic, but it's also difficult. In Italy, we have an organization that is called ECCD that make a card, F-card is called in Italiano scheda F, that helps us, this is a short version, that helps us to identify a photographic material. This is in Italian, but I translate. And for every photograph, for every photo, we have to put this data: inventory, number inventory, collocation, subject identification, subject description, title, name of the picture, notes taken orally, if we have taken some of them, author of the picture, responsible photo print, place date, type of image, digital or print, for example, unit of measure, pixel, how much pixel have the photo, height, width, name in file format, owner, name and address, date of compilation, compilator and observation. Obviously, this is a work of catalogation that has to be made by a professional cataloger. And it's a long work to do this. There are metadata editors that can help us to organize photo in a more easy way if we don't have the need to do a work so deep in a so deep way. You can find them in the internet freely, and they can give us the benefit that we can organize photo in a way that can help us to find photo, to prevent errors, and to identify important files. Obviously, we should, before of doing this, we should delete the photo that we don't need. Also, this is a long work. I made a a screenshot of my computer. This is, for example, I have an iMac, and this is photo, the program that is embedded in the computer, so it's free. But you can also have other type of programs that can almost organize the photo. And so. You see, there is a column that is metadata, and it can make me insert the name of the photo, keywords, if I have modified the file, the type of file, if it's one of my favorite. If there are file di riferimento, referencing file, and the position. So this is a free program that can help me to organize my photo. It's helpful also for a small organization to organize their photographic material. Però ci vuole del tempo. No, dicevi?
No, dicevamo che è un lavoro
it's a long...
fare, è utile, si riesce a fare, ma ci vuole qualcuno.
Ci vuole qualcuno, sì. It's a long way. Yeah. I see when I organize my personal photo, it takes a long time. So you need to pay.
Yeah, somebody.
To pay somebody. We conclude our lesson with some topics that we could see in these days. Our challenges. Non ho ancora. Dopo vi faccio vedere i librini. No, dopo magari faccio vedere i librettini che ho posato. So the first thing to think about is the enormous amount of digital information to manage. We have an enormous amount of information recorded in our computer. We have thousands of applications and formats to manage. We have to manage digital information. The digital information is a series of symbols, 1 and 0, that are readable only with digital instruments. So computers, software, and applications. But the challenge is this data for the next 50, 100 years would be readable. Will exist a technology or a computer that is able to read our information over the last 5 years and for the future? This is a problem. So we have to affront this as the most important issue to think in these days. So one example is choose the right format when we create a record. Another problem is the explosive data growth. In a study of the International Data Corporation, March 2021, it said that data creation and replication will grow at a faster rate than installed storage capacity. So we risk to have more data than space. So it's another problem. What is the data that we have to keep, and what is the data that we are willing to lose? I don't know. So important is to recognize the types of data within the organization, because we have to choose the right data to keep with us. We have a vast majority of storage capacity in our organizations. We have email, documents, images, audio, video files. But not all our data have the same value. We have important records, business critical data, administrative data, historical records that we have to keep. So it's important that we think that not all data have the same value, and not all data have to be treated in the same way. If we give away data that we don't need, we reduce storage costs. It is important to think about. But we cannot simply delete our data. We have to make a decision, and we have to retain, protect, and retrieve data that we need, and to destroy the data that aren't useful for us. We have to know the legal and regulatory requirements for our records. If we have to retain data for more than 10 years, it's important that we know about it, and we organize to catalog them, index, put them in an appropriate archive, apply long data retention requirements, and made them accessible and available when we need them. So it's another task that we have to affront. Another problem is the format of data. The computer technology changes quickly, and we have to keep updated the formats that we use. Usually we use applications that have a level of backward compatibility for data created with other versions, but it isn't for all the records we have. I wrote my documents with my first computer in 1990 that aren't readable because the computer is gone and there are programs to read them. So the backward compatibility is a short compatibility in any way. We have to also limit to compatibility with proprietary application. As we told, Word is a proprietary, and it's better to use free programs because they are the best way to make readable in our records. It's hard to keep in our offices computers that can recognize older media hardware. It's impossible to keep hardware, old hardware in our homes or in our offices. So we have to think about all these questions. And so we have to think about the migration of data if we have to preserve them. When we use formats, we have to think about a way to migrate them in newer formats when it's needed, when we understand that they are at risk of not being readable. In addition to the problem of format, there is also the problem of storage media, because not only the format can change, but our storage media, our computers, our hard disk, our pen drive, after some years won't work anymore. So another problem is that I have at home almost 2 or 3 hard disks that are broken, and all the data inside are gone. You could retrieve them, but paying a lot of money. So another way to save them is always the migration. Migration of data because of the problems of format and also for the problem of media, of storage media. If you are not very young like me, you can remember the first steps of our information technology in our offices. We began with floppy disks, a computer like this. Nowadays, floppy disks aren't readable. You can find computers that can read them. You can't find computers that work with this storage media. Also, compact discs or DVD are all obsolete in these days. So we have to think how to preserve these records. With an increasing number of data sources, data formats and regulations, our problem is manage data records and costs to preserve these records. So we could affront the problem reducing the data that we don't need to preserve, assure access to content, only to contents that need to be preserved. At the moment, we have some different archive media. The first that we use in everyday work is the flash storage. Is ideal for task when we have this need to speed to preserve records in a speed way. Cioè, we use it to keep records for a limited period of time and for a limited amount of giga. They are easily broken, and it's easy to lose all of the contents. So attention. Disks are the best primary storage. If we have to save in a first way our records, we could use hard disks. But, as I told you, it's better to make another copy in a better way. And so servers or cloud are ideal for backups and archives. So what we have to do? At least 2 separate copies of our document. But if you make more copies are better, but with the problem that they occupy space. So a balance. Use different kinds of media, DVD, flash, hard disk, internal storage. Use reputable vendors and products. Don't spare money because they're broken easily. Store media in copies in different locations. If your office is broken and they have your data in the same place, you lose everything. If you have your data in your office and in another place, you can save them in one of the 2 situations. Use metadata and create archival media copies. Because the media of duration of digital information is 5 years. So every 5 years you should copy your data if you don't want to lose them. Usual information, I put some information about records management if you want to look them. And I have also added some other books that I've downloaded by internet. Non so se Claudia avete urgenza di o vado avanti, no?
Concludi, adesso chiediamo anche se qualcuno ha qualche cosa.
Esatto. Thank you.
Ok, grazie.